I am Amanda Schad, interviewing Petie Brown, conducted on February 24th, 2008. So, would you like to please state your full name for me?
My name is Petie Brown.
Okay. And would you like to tell me about your earliest memory?
I guess I was about 3 years old, sitting on the porch step with a long driveway on Brown Road, south into Columbus, on a farm, waiting for my daddy to come home from milking the cows. And I sat there every night and waited for him to come home. And I remember just sitting there, it seemed like I was starting the middle of the day waiting for him, and I'd just sit for hours. And I remember it like yesterday.
Aww.
And I wouldn't go in and wouldn't go get anything or move because I was afraid I'd miss him, and he wouldn't see me sitting there waiting on him.
That is the sweetest memory. Who are some of your heroes?
Bette Midler, Eleanor Roosevelt. I would say my father was my number one hero.
That's sweet. So's my dad. How old were you when you realized you were a lesbian?
I think about 17. I didn't even know what it existed. But I knew I didn't like the boys. But all my life I knew I should have been a boy. And I was always a little butch. And I hated being a girl. And when I went to school, my first time to school for the first 2 weeks, I cried every day for 2 weeks. And they had to call my mom and come in and take me home. And nobody could figure out why I was crying. And the reason I was crying is because they put me in this stupid dress. And I was so embarrassed to be in a dress. And I would cry 2 weeks solid that my mom would have to come to school and pick me up, take me home and yell at me. And they all thought I was having a problem with being away from home or attachment to my mom, but it wasn't anything. It was just I didn't want to be in that dress, and I was ashamed people saw me in a dress.
When you came out, did you tell anyone?
No.
When you did tell your parents, or if you did, how did they react to it, or your friends?
You got to understand that in the 60s and early 70s, but mostly 60s, it wasn't something that was ever discussed. And people didn't come out then. I was in college, and I came out in college, but you couldn't let anybody in your school at school music. You couldn't let them know I was gay, because I probably wouldn't have got a job.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to be gay than professional people. And it just wasn't something. It was very closeted. I don't think I told my family until there had been a mishap in the bar. And when I was first working there, the first night I started attending bar there, it turned gay. Turned into the first women's bar. And some of the police were harassing us. And one night they came in, they didn't want us there. Came in, 3 big old Vice Squad guys came in. Huge. I probably weighed 125 pounds. They said they wanted to see the liquor license. And it was hanging on the wall. And I said, it's right there on the wall. I want to see your liquor license. It's right there on the wall. I want to see your liquor license. It's right here on the wall. Go look at it. It's behind the bar. Go look at it. He says, you're under arrest for obstructing and hindering an liquor inspection. And so they arrested us and took us downtown. I forget what the question was you asked me was. But anyways, it was just harassing us, trying to put us out of business. But one of my customers, when they were coming in the bar, there was a paddy wagon out in front of my bar, sitting there. She came in and had a beer. About 5 minutes later, the police came in. So obviously they were going to arrest us before they ever walked in the door because they had a paddy wagon before they came in. So it was all set up. And it was apparently, they said, I personally prevented those 3 men from coming behind the bar physically. I said, yeah, right. But when we went to court, the gal stood up and says, well, the paddy wagon was there before they were there. And they threw it out of court because it was obvious, just a bust. It was just like that back then, especially on election years. I forget.
Did you ever hear of any, gay or lesbians, when you hear people speak about them while you're growing up or anything?
No, it wasn't spoken. I grew up on a farm, and I went to school in a very, very small town. I had one flashing light, a phone booth, a volunteer fire department, and a little store and the post office was in the store. And very country, and that it wasn't talked about at all.
Did you know anyone else?
I didn't know there was such a thing as gay.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't like boys. You know, I'd go out with them so I could be with my girlfriends. You know, go to the same places. But when it was time to go home, maybe I'd kiss them goodnight real fast and get out of there. Most of the time I wouldn't even kiss them. I'd just be nice to them, but I didn't. I wanted to be the captain of the football team so I could kiss the queen, football queen, you know. But I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I never heard of the word lesbian or none of that stuff till I got in college. I was like, wow. And then I thought it was cool, but I wouldn't sleep with anybody because I thought, oh, well, that's silly. And I wouldn't dance with girls because I thought it was silly. But I had girlfriends, and I would love kissing them. I loved being in love. And I couldn't understand why they'd leave me after about 9 months. They'd break up with me because I wouldn't do what I didn't know. I was like naive as hell. And I had 3 girlfriends before I finally realized that there was more to it than going out and holding hands and kissing.
When you came out in college, how was that experience for you?
It was a great deal of fun because it was a whole new world, and I finally knew that I belonged somewhere. I remember that they took me to a bar. I went to school in Bowling Green, and there was just 3 or 4 of us that all hung out together, that they were all gay, and I felt, finally, I'm not just this strange thing walking around I don't understand. And they took me to Toledo to my first gay bar, and I had to get a fake ID to go. And it was about 30 miles away. And on the way up, I kept thinking, I wonder what kind of music's on the jukebox. Is it regular music? Because I didn't know anything, you know. We get there, and it's like most gay bars back then were just holes in the wall, just nasty, cruddy, crummy little bars. This would have been 1906, maybe 65. And the people that were in that bar, there was a few men, but the women in the bar were either dressed, all men, looked like men. They dressed with men's clothes and suits and ties and pants and shirts and haircuts. You had to really look to see, you couldn't tell if they were men or women. And the women were all dressed like women's skirts and blouses and all made up. It was so bizarre because we were college students and we were like, well, what's that? You know, we didn't know the butch and femme thing. And when I first came out, I was with college people, and it was just, you were just what you were. You wasn't pretending to be a man. And apparently back then, they didn't know what to think of us. Because we were just like girls, being girls, like little butches. You know what I mean? And the feminine ones were more feminine, but it was so weird. And as weird and dirty and scary and bad side of town and the whole 9 yards as it was the first time in my life I felt I fit somewhere. And of all places was that cruddy little bar. But I knew that's where I belonged. I know I didn't belong with the really, really butch things, but I knew that I belonged somewhere. I didn't have to pretend and boys all around. It was great. I finally knew I belonged. This is where I belong.
Tell me about some of your dating experiences and like maybe where you guys went. I know you mentioned the bars. If there's anything.
It seemed like when I was in our 20s, we spent a lot of time in the bars. Because you were free. You'd get off work from playing straight. It seemed like you always played straight. You couldn't like be gay, hold hands walking down the street. It's like you always just dressed like you always dressed in shirt and blue jeans and stuff, but you didn't advertise that you were gay. You didn't. Public, you didn't, because you probably would have been beat up or something. But when you went in the bars, you would dance and be happy, and the other gay people, and it was a whole different world. You could be you, and you work, and the rest of the world was you just did what you had to do, and then you went to the bars to be free, to be who you were, and it was great. And back then there wasn't so many bars, so everybody knew everybody. It was just a community, and you belonged. And you saw other people that belonged. And some of them, by this time there were a few professionals who would come out. But most of the time it was people that didn't know back then weren't professionals because they couldn't be. They would lose their jobs. But mostly it was bars. There wasn't anything else to do. And you can meet a lot of people and ball. A lot of softball players.
Have you ever had like a serious relationship, maybe where like you moved out or you moved in with them, or any like living arrangements? Like, what your commitment level was, or how did you treat your relationships? Maybe
When I first understood what it was all about, making love to somebody, and how beautiful it was to let somebody know how much you loved them, and to be that close. I was a senior in college when I had my first serious relationship. Everyone, I thought I was in love. Everyone before that, I just wouldn't go do the bed thing because I just wasn't there yet. I was very naive and innocent, and wasn't sure about that because I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I'm like, I wonder what you do. And I was like, and most of the time I was like, it's so funny because I grew up on a farm in a small town, and it just wasn't discussed. And it was like, once I figured out what girls did, well, what in the world do boys do? I just couldn't figure it out. I just didn't get it. But, yeah, every one of them, I mean, just crushed you because when you're gay, you couldn't have... When you fell in love, you just thought it was just you against the world, the two of you, mostly. My first few lovers. Or girlfriends. It was so, for me, it was so sincere and everything. So I was just crushed when they left. I mean, totally just crushed. And then after a while, I figured some things out. Most of my relationships would be, for a long time, 9 months was about as long as they lasted. And we were young, and I don't know why that was. Probably had a lot to do with me. But I never cheated on my lovers. I was very serious and very old-fashioned country. You were somebody, that's it. I thought everyone, this is it forever. But finally, I started dating. Some of them started going 3 and 4 years. And then I met with the one. And we were married for 10 years. We lived here. I had a lot going on in my life that was very sad and hard and difficult. And my entire life changed. I was no longer playing in the bands. I had 3 businesses. At the time, I could no longer take care of them. I had to rely on people to take care of them. I was taking care of my father. He had a stroke, and he was my person. And I took care of him. So as far as I'm concerned, if my managers didn't run the business, I'd have to close them because my dad came first. But it was so hard to see him that way. And when I'd come home after 12 hours taking care of him, I would just be upset and couldn't pretend to be happy. It was too hard. It was taking a toll on our relationship. We just kind of drifted apart, and it was hard to pretend that I was in a good mood. And this went on for 7 years. So about the middle of it, because of my dad being ill, I just sacrificed everything. I was studying music, composing, and a lot of my bands, my wife, my businesses, my performances, everything. Quit. My whole life changed. So we kind of split up then because it was the best thing I could do for my lover. Mm-hmm. Set her free from my troubles. Because by that time I wasn't the person she worried. I was no longer a performer or running these businesses. I was miserable, taking care of my dad, not handling it well. But now, for a year or so, we kind of kept our distance. It wasn't a bad breakup, but it's always hard. And it was the hardest thing I've ever been through with this one. But now we're very, very close friends. Have been. I guess I was always meant to be a one-person, and that was it. I don't think I never top it, so I've been single since 1990, and I've lived alone since 1990, minus 9 months.
Tell me about your work life, maybe your treatment of coworkers, and if if you were out at work?
Okay. Growing up on a farm, I had very strict, disciplined work habits. I worked hard. Growing up on a farm, I grew up very muscular, very strong, used to hard work. So I started working for money when I was 15. And I've been working ever since. I worked my way through high school and worked my way through college. I did a lot of jobs. The first job was car hopping in a bowling alley, and a grill cook, and a dishwashing, and a waitress, and dusting down the lanes, and the whole thing, the whole job thing. I made 65 cents an hour.
Wow.
And I worked after school and weekends when I wasn't in band practice or football games or something that we played in. And but I did have all kinds of jobs. And that dishwasher job, it wasn't the kind where you had the big dishwasher. It was the 3-tub sink. And you wash dishes. And when I was in college, I worked in another food service, and I did run a dishwasher there, and that was much better. And I worked in a machine gun factory. It was during the Vietnam War, the last couple of years of my school. I worked second shift, 11 to 7, third shift, I guess. And then, I think I made $2 at that. It was awful hard working all night and going to school, running the punch presses. I just look like I do now in pants and shirt. I don't put a sign on that I'm gay, never have. But I didn't try to look like a girl because I look stupid like a girl. I'm just who I am. And Bowling Green was a pretty small town. And this guy thought he was very intelligent because he figured out he thought I didn't like guys because they would all flirt with me and I wouldn't have anything to do with them. So I think they had a bet to see if I was gay or not. And during that time I didn't have a car or anything. I had a little tiny motorcycle. And if it didn't snow too hard, I might ride through the tracks in the snow to get to work. And if it was too deep or too icy, I'd have to walk, and it was 2 or 3 miles from my apartment. Well, one of those nights, this fellow come up and says, "How about I give you a ride home?" Well, I'd walked, and it snowed more, and it was cold. I said, "Well, okay." Only he didn't take me home. He took me way out in the middle of nowhere. Tried to put a make on me. Made me mad. It just made me madder than hell. And by the time he was done trying to get and kiss me and all that shit, it was we had an old car that used to have the little wings in the side window. You had a window you cranked down, and then you had another little window, had a little wing window. That was probably before your time. We had one of those. Well, somehow I just grabbed a hold of that guy's head and hair, and I smashed it against the window, and broke that little window, and he had blood all over his head, and it scared me. I thought, oh my God, I killed him. So I jumped out of the car. I didn't know where I was, and it was still dark out. It was, must have been early in the morning. And I didn't know where I was, except on some dirt road in the middle of nowhere. So I just started walking the opposite direction the car was facing. I figured I went into something, and when the sun was coming up, I could figure out which way was east, because I thought I was east of town. Well, then I heard this car after a while. I got maybe 10, 12 city blocks. Come flying behind me. I thought, my God, he's going to run into me. And I looked behind me. He aimed his car right at me. So I jumped in the ditch. He went up there, turned around and come back. And I jumped in the ditch again. I thought he was going to kill me. I guess he's mad. I thought he was going to kill me. But I believed with all my heart that they had a bet and they were going to find out if I was gay. And he was the one. I don't know that for a fact. But he found out that I didn't like boys. Because came to work next day. The whole side of his face was purple. And some stitches up here. He didn't hurt me. Just made me mad. And I'd never been violent in my life. But he finally drove downstairs and he says, "You know what? I'm very sorry. If we get in, I'll take you home," I said. And I did, because I figured out by that time that he was scared of me. And I could protect myself. So he took me home, but that stuff went on a lot. It still goes on. You don't hear about it in the paper because people don't report it. Because if he was a doctor or a lawyer, you don't want to say, well, I was beat up outside a gay bar. Well, that's why I was beat up. Because you couldn't then, and there's probably a lot of places now you can't. But way back in the 70s, there weren't any gay bars, 60s, 70s. There weren't any women. They were all boys mostly. And they weren't, some of them didn't like women in them, but they were all mixed. But there weren't so many professional people come out. They were afraid to come out. So the people in the bars were more of the people that were too stubborn to give in and live the straight life in a closet. So the kind of jobs they had to take were factory jobs. Or they just pretended to be a man because they were too much pride to act like a girl when they weren't, to wear a dress to work every day. When I was in high school, you had to wear a dress. You couldn't wear slacks. And most of the jobs, you didn't wear slacks to work. People didn't wear slacks like that. If you were any kind of a teacher or anything, you wore dresses. And none of those little bunches back then, and probably me in some way, didn't want to wear a dress. I didn't want to wear a dress, shoes and hose and stuff because it wasn't who I am, didn't want to play that game. So a lot of the people in the bars at that time were people that were very stubborn and had a lot of pride and worked labor jobs and had a different point of view and were very, very into this butch femme thing. I didn't really fit into that, but it was part of the reason I didn't want to teach because I figured out, obviously, I looked gay, walked gay, everything about me was gay. Being a musician, I would be teaching people who didn't want to, when they get out of study hall, they joined a band. A lot of those, and I just didn't think I had enough thick skin because I was very sensitive as a musician to really know that all my students were making fun of me, and probably other teachers would probably have a problem with me, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But so the bars were a different caliber of people. Professional people didn't come out to the bars until the early 70s. A big old change happened, and I was right in the middle of it. The middle of the Vietnam War, Stonewall Union, the early 70s came about. Do you know about the history of Stonewall Union?
We have learned about it in class, and I mean, I'm sure nothing of what you could give me I would have learned in the book, I'm sure, so.
I'm glad you know about them because that gives a lot of history. I'm just giving you little personal views. But it came about because it was needed. And when that came about and we got our chapter here and then we started the gay pride marches, then the campus kids became coming out gay. And laws were being made because it's the Stonewall Union, because of some attorneys that were gay and was very active. Some politicians were sort of active, but they wouldn't come out. But they would vote without, But we were getting laws to protect them. And so by that time, mid-70s or so, more professional people were coming out. The bars were getting nicer. And there was less and less of the people that were looking like men and tattoos on them. And I got to see that whole change because I never fit in that one. And it was just so cool all of a sudden, especially when that bar went gay. It was 1971. There was 3 bars on the same little strip, like a block long. There was an apartment building, a bar, biker bar, a little convenient grocery store, and then a neighborhood bar, and then this other bar called Jack's. And the guy that owned that bar called Jack's, he was bisexual and had a wife he lived with, but they were divorced, but they just cared about each other. And he owned this one bar called Jack's, 2210 Summer Street. And a couple of friends of mine knew him, and they were sitting in there on the Sunday, and he had no business. These 2 women in there talking to him. He says, I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. I have 3 bars right here. I can't get any, don't have any business. I said, well, why don't you make it a girls' bar? He says, what? There aren't any. At that time, there was only 2 in the United States. Somebody called me up because I wanted to get a part-time job. I wanted to get a bigger motorcycle. And somebody called me up, one of my co-workers. Says, come meet me down at this bar. Because they didn't live too far away. I said, okay. And I went down there and they were talking about, try just having a women's bar because they don't have a bar. I don't know if they have enough business making any money or not. He says, what have I got to lose? I don't have any customers now because there's 3 bars right here and 2 up the street a few blocks. Got Waltz and Real Blondies used to be. And I was just saturated with bars. So he hired me to bartend, which all I knew how to do was open a bottle of beer. I'd never drink drinks. So he says, and in 71, on Sunday, you could serve 3-2 beer until midnight. And then you can serve liquor then, and 6% beer. You don't even know what 3-2 beer is.
No.
That's what people who are 18 could drink 3-2 beers. Didn't make you as drunk, they said.
Oh.
Regular beer is about 6%. And then there's 3-2 beer. And that's to drink on Sundays with kids up between 18 and 21. Once you're 21, you can drink anything.
Okay.
So he says, well, okay, let's try it for a month or so. Let's just try making it a woman's bar and see what happens. Because that one was pretty much a redneck bar. The few customers they had. So we got on the phone, called everybody we knew that night. I started bartending 6 or 7 o'clock it was. And they only had 2 kind of 3-2 beers, so I knew how to do that. So popped a can and sold them 3-2 beer for 50 cents a can of beer. Showed me how to work his register, and he left. And we just had all the women we knew come down because everybody, the gay women, at then, the ones that were out, there wasn't that many that came out. So we just called everybody we knew, came down here that wonderful night. And at midnight, they say, well, I want a rum and coke. I'm like, how do you make it? Ask my customers. And that's how I learned the bartend. I just asked everybody how to make what they wanted. And that night, that's the first night I was a bartender, not knowing what I was doing. And that was the first night I went gay to a women's bar. And that made it the 3rd women's bar in the whole United States. So I kind of liked bartending because I was extremely shy. And being behind the bar, I could talk to people and meet everybody and be friendly. And it's not like I had to just sit and try to think of something to say. Because they talked.
Yeah.
And if I didn't know what to say, I'd just go wait for somebody else. So I got to meet so many really nice people. It was just really cool, except the problem was most of the police didn't like us. And all the bars on the street didn't like this lesbos, I think the dykes or whatever they called us. Didn't take them long to figure out. So they wanted to come in and let us know that we were gay because we really had never been with a real man. That was the problem. Mm-hmm. So there was quite a bit of problem with straight men wanting to fix our problems. Like I said before, I was never a violent person, but I felt very protective over my girls. I was all of 22 years old. Some of the guys were really rude and mean and nasty. And as it turned out, it was necessary to grab some pool cues and a handful of women run the guys out, scare them, because they would come in. They'd just walk up to somebody and hit them if they didn't dance with them. They'd just slug them because they didn't understand. And once that started, when I thought, how can we educate them and let them know we're just people, that we're not anything you need to be afraid of, but for some reason they feared this and wanted to get us out. And there was a lot of problems, and we always grabbed pool cues. And fortunately, most of us we won most of the time, and they finally quit bothering us. But there were 2:30 at night. There was some uniforms policemen would sit out across, wait till the bar closed. And when people walked across the street to get in their car, they'd write them jaywalking tickets every night. And they said you have to cross at the crosswalk. Well, that was about 4 blocks or 5 blocks north. Or farther than that, south of us. To walk across the crosswalk, to walk across the street. So one night, every night after night, they sit there. So one night, we decided, well, we'll just fix it. And they would come in the bar sometimes and just look around, check IDs, and just harass us. These cops didn't want us there. So one morning, about 3 or 4 in the morning, there was a phone booth out close to the front of the bar. And there was a phone booth up on somewhere on Hudson Street, close to Summit. And we had somebody up there, and they'd call us from the police car. They saw a police car coming down Summit. Because 3 or 4 of us went out there with a bucket of white paint and rollers on sticks. And we painted a crosswalk on Summit Street from front of my door across the street. And it was there for years until they repaved it. But the cops could no longer write us tickets. The crosswalk was illegal. But nobody, how they going to know? They knew probably somebody in that bar painted it, but they couldn't prove who it was. And the cops couldn't say anything about it because they knew we'd go to court and they'd find out that they were harassing us. And they didn't want that to come out. So that solved that problem. And there was also, at the same time that we were being harassed by uniform cops and undercover cops, they just didn't like us. They didn't want a gay bar. But there were 2 undercover cops that came in. One name was Jim and the other name was Richard, I think. And they were homicide, vice, undercover, something. And they liked us. They liked me. They come in and sit and talk to me. And they met a lot of customers and they went, this is nice. I said, yeah, this is a place you can go and not be harassed. You can be yourself. Straight women, gay women, you can come to the bar and not have guys trying to pick you up or beating you up because they don't like the way you look. Or you got drunk and was holding somebody's hand. So we needed a gay bar for women. And these guys met us, and they liked us, and they thought it was nice. And they'd been in a lot. They were checking into some friends of a guy that owned the bar. And they wanted me to be given information because of the people he associated with were organized people. The guy that owned the bar, I really, all my heart, did not believe he was in it, but he had close friends in it. And they borrowed money from him to open bars. But he wasn't the part of them that hit men and all that stuff. It was legitimate, but his friends were high up in the organization. So they wanted me to inform on the meetings they would hold in that bar. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So they were nice to me, but I never told them anything because I truly respected my boss. And I'm not the type of person that would, be an informant. So I would always say, well, these people came in, had some drinks, and they were talking about going to the track, and I just didn't tell them anything that was important. I know a couple of them that were very, very way up there, maybe the top man. But I never told him he came in, and never mentioned him. But I liked these guys, so they would come in on their time off, these 2 undercover cops, when we were having so much trouble in the beginning. And they'd sit in the bar till late on their nights off. And when the guys come in, they would start running them out. Because I was telling them about problems we was having. And he loved the crosswalk, and he was all for us. As a matter of fact, one of them got me my first singing job in Columbus. Because when we weren't busy, I'd take my guitar in and play, because it took a while to get the business going. And I'd sit there and play my guitar. And pretty soon people would call on the phone, and there'd be all these people come in while I was playing my guitar. So somebody else would bartend. And this guy was just nuts. He's like, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm just playing my guitar, and I work as a police officer in the daytime over at IState, or a security officer, traffic officer. And he thought that was pretty cool. He says, but nobody over there knows you're gay. I said, oh no, I'd be fired. So I had to live that double life for a while. But for some reason, he just really liked my singing, my playing. He got me my first job singing. From there, I just went really good. Anyways, so we had bad cops trying to rent us out. We had rednecks we had to fight them out. And then we had some vice cops that come in and protected us. On the worst night is whatever night it was, like it was Friday or Saturday. I think it was Friday night when they got paid. They'd sit there on Friday night and they'd see it start and he'd go up and show them the badge. And he'd help put an end to it. The bad parts. So we had good cops harassing us or taking care of us, and some bad cops harassing us. And a lot of redneck men. A lot of guys. And I never understood why they were so angry at us, or hateful, or cruel. Because most of those women, none of them were violent that I remember. They were just women. But by the time Stonewall came along, and the bar changed, it was the same time so the university was, a lot of gay women from the university with bragging about being gay, wanting the whole world to change, and didn't understand the dangers of walking down the street holding hands. That these people wait in this bar next door to come over and hit you in the head and kill you and not think twice about it for whatever reason. But they changed that. There's so many of them. And when they had the first gay pride, there was so many of them. And it was so nonviolent. It showed that there was a whole bunch of us, not just a couple freak people in the world. And when they realized they could vote, then they quit raiding the bars. It used to be, especially with election years, they constantly raided all the bars. But by the time they realized that from the gay prides on national television that day, the whole country, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, every big city and all the little in-between cities like Columbus, and they saw all those people. And the politicians saw all those votes. And that's what made the difference. Because now laws were getting passed to protect us. And even hate crimes and stuff, that's all come from Stonewall and the gay attorneys that finally came out and people coming out. There's still a lot of people in the closet. My generation before me, which would be my mom's dad's generation, it was never discussed. And I think I had a gay aunt because she never married for years and years and years. And then one day she got married in 30 or 40, and I was a beautician. And he was one of these. And the whole family was... Nobody ever said Susie was gay. But she married this guy that is such a... He was really, he'd sit like this. And there was no doubt. But so that generation, a lot of times they didn't marry. And had separate bedrooms, did their own thing. They married for the families, for their jobs, the whole game. But they didn't tell anybody they were gay. They got married because some people wouldn't think they were gay. And in my generation is when it just happened. We walked down the street in a gay parade and saying, I'm gay. And it was cool. It was the coolest thing in the world. People don't know that now. They don't understand what you had to go through to get there. To get a permit to have a parade. But it all started with Stonewall Union in New York City. And it's a lot different now in many ways. But in certain neighborhoods or places, there's still a lot of hate. You just don't hear about it on the news because it's not that newsworthy. I think it was maybe... I sold that bar in 2000. A couple of years before that, somebody's telling me about this band that was so good. And they wanted me to go hear them because they were straight. But one of the members' daughter was gay, and one of people in my community knew these people, and and they had this great band, the wife. And she was really open to gay people. And they were playing at I don't know if it was Eagles or the VFW or one of those things off Broadway or Oakland. And they wanted me to come hear them for an audition. So I went up there with 6 or 7 gay women to watch the performance. Everybody in the bar was sitting over here, and there was this little section over here we all sat in. I drank Coke all night long. Nobody got drunk. We were there for one set, I think. So we went there for maybe an hour. And everybody behaved themselves. They didn't hold hands, kiss. We just went in, sat down, and minded our own business and didn't cause a ruckus. Second set, and they were real good, so we were staying. I liked them real well, the band. But nobody else would talk to us hardly, and we didn't care. We didn't come in and say we were gay, and we didn't come in and say we were straight. We just came in. Well, this guy came up to us, started the second set, so we've been there a little over an hour. I'm going to have to ask you ladies to leave. Because the women said somebody tried to kiss him in the bathroom. Oh, one of your customers said somebody in this group was trying to kiss him in the bathroom. Yes. And they said they were doing things in the bathroom which they were not. There's no couples. There were no couples. There were just a bunch of us. Some feminine, some butch, but nobody was like couples. None of them would be kissing in the bar. It was just, they decided we were gay, and they didn't want us there. And it kind of caught me off guard because it's been 20-some years since over 20, probably 30-some years by then, since we've been running people out, since we've been treated that way, been asked to leave because we were gay. 71, that would have been 2000. Over 30 years that I had this major experience. I felt humiliated and embarrassed, and I just looked at him and I said, well, I understand exactly what you're saying. Because when I look around in your bar, I don't see any African American people. I don't see any Asian people. I don't even see any Latino people. I don't see anything but straight white people in here. I said, that might kind of think you're discriminating. And it kind of really makes me angry because 2 of these ladies are vets. American veterans. It was American vets. AMVETS is what it was. Are veterans. They were in Vietnam. And you're saying we all have to leave because somebody said somebody's doing something in the restroom. And I'll bet you my life. They weren't. I think you just want us out of here because you don't like what we stand for. Now we're different. We're not straight and white. And you don't want anybody in here except that. He had a gun. He had a gun on him. I said, well, son, we'll leave. Not because you asked us to. Because now that you've shown us who you are and what you are, we don't want to be here. I don't want to give you another one of my dollars. So we're leaving because we don't want to be around you anymore, not because you think you're going to chase us out with your big bad gun. And we left. We went back to my bar. 10 minutes later, here come the band that was singing. They walked out on the job, and the gal that was the leader of the main sing came in, and she tears. She was crying. She felt so bad. We weren't that upset. I was more stunned. And she had tears crying. She'd just come in the bar and just hugged me, and said she was so sorry. She felt responsible for us being treated so poorly. I said, no, it wasn't that bad, really. It's been 30 years since I've seen that stuff firsthand. That bad. And we set up, I had my band equipment down there. We set up my band equipment, and they sang all night in my bar for nothing. But they were all straight. But we were asked to leave AMVETS. And what made me angry was 2 of them were veterans. And I was the oldest one. There were younger people that were with me, my manager and stuff. And I felt like I needed to explain it to them because they were really upset because they hadn't seen what I'd seen 30 years before that. They just took it for granted you always had a place to go, and you could always go to a gay pride with you could walk down the street holding hands. You wouldn't get fired if you told people work, and you didn't have to wear a dress and heels and shit to work. They didn't understand how it was before, and I said, I feel like wish I could tell you something to make you feel better. But a whole lot has changed in 30 years, but all I can say is I don't know what to say to them. I just didn't know how to explain it because I thought a lot of that was over. I said, well, someday they may make it so pigs might fly. You may be able to make a pig fly someday, but it'll never be an eagle. And that's what those people were, pigs. And maybe they could fly, but they'll never be honorable people. And that wasn't too long ago that happened. I'm kind of rattling on, Annie.
That's fine. I love listening. Any rallies or protests that you participated in that you want to talk about? Or organizations, political groups? Maybe what motivated you to get involved?
Well, before I owned a bar, I played in a lot of straight bars and gay bars. We did a lot of benefits to help our own. Somebody was having legal problems because with children and gay and husbands and custody because they were gay. The band played probably more benefits in all kind of bars, straight bars, gay bars, for our own people needed help before we had laws, before gay women could own their own children. Because before, years in the early 60s, if you had a child and was married and then you was aware of the fact that they were gay and there was such a thing as women lesbians, they couldn't keep the kids because they were gay, they were perverted. Whenever you heard the word gay or lesbian on TV, it was like, they'd say, drug addicts, prostitutes, and gay people. They were always three put together. So a lot of times there'd be legal fees with gay women trying to keep their children. Gay women trying to fight discrimination. So we did a lot of benefits for people who went in trouble because they needed help. We did a lot for people who needed medical stuff. I was in an organization once that we would just raise money for people who needed stuff. So we did, I don't know, there's a lot of benefits. The pride thing was the biggest thing for protesting. When I bought my bar, I decided it should be a bar for anybody that wanted to come in. Women's bar. But if you had straight friends and they were nice, they could come in. If they couldn't, they'd go out. Because I felt if I could educate people about gay on one-on-one. If you had a good friend that was straight, a guy, you could bring him in my bar. And he would see they were just people having fun. Yeah. They weren't perverted, they weren't doing things. They were dancing, having fun, playing pool, laughing. And they were just people. So I always felt if people had the education, the knowledge, or experience that they're just people, then the hate would go away. So that was part of my idea when I first bought that bar was, I'm going to educate the rednecks and people one-on-one, one at a time.
What about your religious views?
I was very religious when I was young, and I always believed in God, and it was a very private thing. I didn't feel like when I got out of college that I needed to go to church to be religious. The older you get, the more you start to realize there's more to it. There must be something up there. There has to be a God. Something much more powerful in you that is beyond our comprehension of even knowing how and why and knowing the answers. There's things in the Bible that says we shouldn't be gay. But as far as I'm concerned, we didn't make the top 10. We're not on the big top 10 list of the 10 Commandments. And it does say some places we shouldn't be. But I think, I don't know. I can't believe God could put us on earth and obviously we're gay. Some people are just gay because you're born that way. I was born gay. I never had any interest in men. It was an instinct. For a man to come up and kiss me, I'm instinctively pushing him away. You're born with that. Some people are just born gay. There are some men walking around out there that you couldn't possibly put a gun in their hand and ask them to shoot somebody and join the army. You couldn't draft them. Because they're women in a man's body. Everything about them sensitive. They couldn't. They're born that way. And some people are made that way. So I can't believe that when it's time for me to go, that God's going to say, well, you were gay. I can't, you're not out in here. And you own a gay bar, and if I'm encouraging more gay, and I don't, might be in big trouble. Because all that's in the Bible was wrong. But I can't believe God made mistakes. And I don't think I'm a mistake. I think it's his answer to birth control, for one thing. I think you're what you are, and that's what you're supposed to figure it out. You're supposed to live with it and learn whatever it is you're supposed to learn. And understand. You do have a better understanding of other people because you're gay. But I think it's not. I don't think we're a mistake. I really don't. So I believe very strongly in the Lord, and it's a very private thing. The woods out here is my church. I don't believe too much in organized religion. And the TVs send me thousands of dollars and will pray for you. I don't think you need that. I think you just talk to God yourself, and you don't need somebody to pray for you. And I don't believe he's going to turn his back on us. And I hope I'm right. Jesus never said one word about gay. I knew a nun very well once. And it was of her opinion that Jesus never talked about sex or gay. No place in the New Testament. It's only other people. And it might not have been in it at all. Maybe it got translated by men because women weren't allowed to know how to read and write at the time the Bible was being written. They weren't allowed to be educated. So the men was writing it, so I don't know.
What do you think of today's youth?
It's getting better. I never dreamt in my lifetime a gay woman on TV, openly gay, and have her own talk show. That surprised me. I still find it surprising when there was that piano player that wore those outfits and was obviously gay.
John Elton.
No, this is way, way, way back in the 50s.
Oh.
He was... Oh, yeah. He'd come out and he obviously gay, and old women liked him, and played the piano, and he was a showman. I wish I could think of his name. He was obviously gay, but they didn't think he was gay. They didn't even know it existed. Everybody loved him. And he was so obviously flamboyant and gay. Flippant. And people were shocked years later when they found out he was gay. They were shocked to death when they found out Robert Hudson was gay. They couldn't believe that he was gay. All those years they thought he was the man. These are people of my mother's generation. And then they find out these people were gay. But I never thought in my life I would see how openly a gay woman have a talk show.
What would you say you're most proud of?
I'm proud of people that started out customers in my little pub. And my first Christmas show, I just wanted to... Well, my first one was just me and my piano player and bass player. We just dressed up and we all sang Christmas carols with the bar. It was no big thing. It was just real casual. And then the next year, I decided I wanted to put some kind of a show on just to say thanks to my customers. Well, it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And every year for 24 years. And we raised a hell of a lot of money. And we did a lot of good. I'm proud of the people that gave so much time and energy to do it. And we also opened an avenue for people to give. My customers. They had a place they could give and know it wasn't going to just go to administration, somebody's pocket. We raised so much money for so many years and did so many good things just in the Christmas show every year. And it was the biggest event, I think, in the gay community as far as talked about and every year, and it kept getting bigger and better and better. And I'm proud of the people, the customers that came and supported it and gave and gave and gave. And I'm proud of the people that put their time and energy and did it. Because it was a big, big job. It was a big job. I'm proud of being a part of that. We supported, the last 10 or 12 years, the money we raised, the money for children's with AIDS. And with that money, we also sent them to Sunrise Camp, Sunrise, with all the doctors and stuff. Do you know about that camp? It's for gay kids, and there's like 8 professional people for each person because they're handicapped and need so much attention.
Oh, wow.
So the money went for them, and we had parties at the children's hospital for those children every year with entertainment and stuff. Because it was just so typical. The gay women who don't get AIDS were taking care of the gay children who had AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm proud of being a part of that. I'm very proud of the people that did that. And we had a lot of professional people helping us. Sometimes we'd have professional makeup artists. There was a guy now, I can't think of his name, but he's real famous. He's here in Columbus. As a designer. He sells clothes, he's on his shopping centers, and he designed and made some of our costumes. And it was really something. And we had a professional choreographer every year. That's a lady I think you should talk to. And before that, the only big bashes that you could count on every year, especially way back in the 70s and 60s, was a Berwick party. Because prior to the 70s, for men to want to be in a dress, Halloween was the only time they could legally be in drag. So, of course, Halloween was a big thing in the gay community. And they had a big party and big show for the Berwick, and everybody went. It was huge. And I think our Christmas show was right up there with them on His Christmas. And it went for 24 years. And I'm proud of that one.
Is there anything else you'd like to share? Or any closing remarks?
I think we have come so far. Relatively short time. Change of any kind takes years. Even when I went on government, when we declared freedom, it took us 2 years to find the government put together a Declaration of Independence. It took 2 years once we won the freedom, to put it all together. It takes a lot of time to change culturally, socially. There's still a lot of hate crimes. There's still a lot of people that don't like gay people. But we've come a long, long